you. Can everyone hear me okay? Mic is on? Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor to be here, and thank you all for being here with us. Mic is not on? It is on. Okay.
It takes a little.
You guys can hear me okay? All right. Holly Briedis. I'm a partner at McKinsey & Company, and for those not familiar with McKinsey, it's a large international consulting firm. We work with some of the largest Fortune companies in the world, governments, public sector and social sector institutions. And at McKinsey, I'm responsible for leading our retail and customer experience practice. So if you think about any store you've ever walked into, right, a lot of them are losing foot traffic, they're struggling with declining kind of malls closing, stores closing, everything like that. I help our retail clients actually think about how they can win in that dimension, right? Be that online, infusing e-commerce, marketplaces, a better customer experience in their stores so that they can stay open. So that's a lot of what I do professionally. Prior to joining McKinsey, I actually spent the better part of 10 years in venture capital, working with startups. So I would invest in digital media and technology companies and took a series of operational roles, mostly on the marketing side of the house, with them prior to joining McKinsey. So I came in more as an experienced hire. I think on the personal side, I have a husband here in Dallas. We're new to Dallas. We've only been here about 2 years, so we appreciate the big Dallas welcome. Dallas is an amazing city to live. But we joined from living all over the world together, most recently in Miami and before that in Nairobi, Kenya. And I have an 11-month-old son, so I'm also adjusting to what I know many women in the room can relate to, of being a working mom and, you know, how to bring that entire thing of work and life together. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Holly. Can we give a warm Texas welcome to Holly? Thank you very much. Rakhee, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Is this on?
It takes,
okay.
It's a little bit slow starter.
Yeah, I hardly ever get the complaint that you can't hear me. I have a pretty loud voice. So hi, I'm Rakhee Patel. I am a shareholder at Winstead PC, which is a large regional to national firm. We actually just opened our New York office, which I'm super excited about because I absolutely adore New York. But I've been at Winstead for almost 4 years now, and joined after a series of different places. I started off out of law school at another regional law firm in Texas, moved to an international law firm, went to go be a law clerk for 2 federal bankruptcy judges, and then came back to a large international law firm. And at the time, I was in my young 30s at that point, I was convinced that I was just miserable inside of large international law firms. So I left to start my own boutique practice. And I am a corporate turnaround and restructure lawyer by trade. So I left with a partner and we started our own business. We called it our business bankruptcy boutique, and ran that firm for about 9 years, and then got wooed back into progressively larger firms, which is where I found myself at Winstead again. That's a little bit about my career path. Now about me, really. So I moved to the United States when I was about 6 or 7 years old. We moved from London, England, and we lived in the proper, main part of London, and we moved to Brinkley, Arkansas. And I always like to say when people ask me, where's Brinkley, Arkansas, I just say, you've answered your own question. So, we moved to small town in the heart of the Deep South in the very late 70s, and we were the first family that looked like our family to arrive in Brinkley, Arkansas. So that was certainly an eye-opening experience. I've been in Dallas ever since I graduated law school. I'm married to my husband for, it'll be 20 years this September. We have 3 beautiful, amazing children, 2 daughters and a son. My kids are 15, 13, and 9. And so, that's a little bit about me. What do I like to do when I'm not being a lawyer and a mom? I love to cook, and I love to ski, of all things. So, which I learned as an adult. Very, very terrifying, but very rewarding now. So.
Thank you so much. Can we give Rakhee a wonderful Texas welcome? Welcome. And now we have Rina. Would you introduce yourself, Rina?
Yeah, thank you, Debjani. And yeah, it's really great to be here today, so really my pleasure. So Rina Parikh, I'm a partner at Grant Thornton. We are a pretty large international public accounting firm. I'm with the firm for about 17 plus years and was at a different firm for a few years before that. I really joined the firm as an associate and have kind of grown up in the firm over the years, and I'm a partner for the last 5 years. I lead our real estate and financial service practice. Work with a number of companies, corporation. I sort of specialize in IPO. I've taken a number of companies public over my career. So it's been a wonderful kind of run so far. On a personal note, I grew up in India, Mumbai. Hopefully there are a few here from Mumbai. And I moved here in '98, and since then, me and my husband have called Texas our home. So we have two beautiful daughters. My older one, she is a sophomore at Rice University in Houston, and I have a younger one who is a sophomore in high school. So it's been a wonderful kind of journey together as a family here in Dallas. So.
Thank you very much. And again, let's welcome Rina. And if you hold on to the mic, Rina, I'm going to go ahead and start with a question linked to something you just said about, many of us are born in another country. Am I correct? How many of us are born in another country? A bunch of us, right? So we'd really like to hear your insights into some of the challenges that you might have faced related to culture, as well as some of the things that Debra mentioned related to gender. What might have been some of those challenges, and how might you have overcome some of those barriers that you experienced?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, because I think, as a big part of what I do as a partner in the firm is to grow our practice, grow our business, and really when I see, even though we have done a tremendous improvement over the years, since 20 years I started in this profession, still all the executive level, and decision maker, there is really not that much diversity, and they are, still full of male. I mean, I have to interact all the time with the executives to kind of really win their trust. We're all really, as a women, I think that we all are very talented. We are have a great work ethics, but that's kind of where it to be stopped sometime, right? I think to get to that next level, to kind of break that ceiling and get into that group where you could be an influencer or you be part of that in group at the executive level is kind of always been difficult. And then somebody, of course, it's already difficult for women, and somebody who didn't grow up here, didn't have a college affiliation. Most of my education was in India, and who don't look like them or talk like them. I think sometimes it adds a little bit more challenges, so some way it's been a very challenging path, but it has been very, very rewarding. And actually I really enjoyed kind of getting through that barriers of diversity in some way. I don't want, there is not like a one recipe that has worked in my mind, but at some point I've used to stand out, being different, and that has really worked. And at some point, I kind of really try to blend in. So it's really, depends upon what the situation is and what I'm trying to accomplish. I've learned a lot of things that I didn't really care or had an interest in. I was never a sports person, but I kind of follow pretty much all the sports now, and really kind of try to learn what others like. So I think the one thing has worked for me is really making it easy for others to accept you, right? I mean, and people always talk about diversity and inclusion, and they almost see that as a right, that, hey, you need to include me. But I see that as a two-way path of you coming forward and making it easy for somebody else to accept you. I would...
Nice.
So I would say, I don't want to say fit in is a good word, but I've really adapted a lot of different things, have picked up a lot of skills and interests that I didn't have, and just being more intentional about putting myself out to do things that was hard, right? And naturally kind of taking things or satisfying myself too quickly. You know, as a woman, we are never satisfied with number of dresses in our wardrobe, but we were very quickly satisfied with our career path. And you know, I think just kind of really encourage everybody to kind of not, you know, kind of say, hey, this is good enough, I'm already doing enough, but really trying to achieve what you want to achieve, so.
Thank you very much, and I think you hit on that unconscious gender bias that we talked about. And yes, let's be generous with applause. Let's not just have one or two. Absolutely, if you like it, let's appreciate it. Rakhee, I'm going to move to you right now, and I'm going to ask you if you could look back to your 25-year-old self. And, you know, sometimes we're very hard on ourselves, but if we could look back and be an ally or a friend to our 25-year-old self, what advice might you give yourself and say, this is what I've learned, this is what you should do?
That's a really good question. I guess a few things. First and foremost, present day me would tell my 25-year-old self to wear more sunscreen and buy lots of Apple stock. For sure on that. I think, you know, Debra, you were kind enough to share your age, so you've emboldened me to do the same thing. I also am 47 years old now. So, you know, 22 years later, what I would say to my 25-year-old self is as follows. One, believe in yourself. Have more confidence and faith in yourself. You know, we were... In preparation for you know, today's conference, we were asked the question, I'm a winner because, and I spent a fair amount of time thinking about it, talked to a dear friend about it, and said, you know, gosh, how do I finish that sentence? And I thought, my response ultimately came to, I'm a winner because I believe I'm a winner. And so it really doesn't matter to me what somebody else's measure of a winner is. I'm a winner because I believe I'm a winner in my heart. And I think that's what I would tell that would tell my 25-year-old self. Believe in yourself. Take a risk. Take a chance on yourself. To Debra's point, you know, you got to get in there and negotiate for self. No one ever got anything that they didn't ask for. And so many times, you know, you have to go advocate for yourself. And I can look back over, you know, my almost 25-year career now and think to myself, gosh, I was a really great advocate for my client, but why would I not advocate for myself? So that's that's definitely one of the key messages I would tell my younger self. Believe in yourself, take more chances. So, you know, I told you my part of the story where I left a very good job at a major international law firm to go start a boutique bankruptcy law firm. I mean, it was, at the time, I'm pretty sure it was crazy. But I'm so glad I took that risk because it made me have to take more chances. It made me have to believe in myself more. It made me have to go out and work harder to get those clients, to build my own personal brand, to tell the world who I was. It made me get in court more, which helped me develop as a lawyer and develop my personal bankruptcy skills. So it's things like that. I think, and I would tell this to anybody, just have faith in yourself and go out there and take those chances, take those risks, ski down that mountain, that run that you think, oh, I'm never gonna get down this thing. Go do that, because that's where the real satisfaction comes. One part of, during my introduction, I didn't tell you, I actually started off my career as a commercial litigator, not as a bankruptcy lawyer. And it came about 4 years into my career, and I was deeply dissatisfied with my practice, deeply dissatisfied. And I still have this book, and I keep it on my bookshelf to this very day. And the book is, you know, 500 things you can do with a law degree that aren't the practice of law. And I was that close. I was that close to stopping being a lawyer. And I'm so glad that I didn't. And a dear friend of mine who's actually in the room today is the reason why I stuck with it. She is a bankruptcy lawyer, and I talked to her and, you know, shared with her how deeply dissatisfied I was, and she said, well, take a chance. Go, you know, if think you like what I do, go figure out how to go make that happen. Well, I figured out how to go make that happen, and I'm so delighted. I'm passionate about what I do. I love going to work. I love what I do. And I think that translates for everyone. So take that chance. That's the first piece of advice I would give 25-year-old me. The second one would be, you know what? Don't take everything so seriously all the time. Learn to enjoy the things in life. So, you know, with my kids, I just yesterday was talking to my dad, and I said, oh man, I can't believe my oldest is 15, and you know, we're talking about driving classes now. And I thought, oh, she's growing up so quickly, and we were already talking about, you know, summer plans, and she's going away for 3 weeks. I lamented how quickly she's growing up. I think the thing I would tell my 25-year-old self would be appreciate every single day. Appreciate every one of those moments because they're fleeting. And pretty soon you'll be 47 years old and being asked the question of what would you tell your 25-year-old self? So, you know, maybe in another 22 years, I'll have more sage advice for myself, but those are kind of my two key points, are believe in yourself and appreciate every single day that you got.
Thank you so much, Rakhee. Wonderful responses. One of the things we want to do with this panel is boldly shatter tired gender stereotypes. And one of the most tired gender stereotypes is that as women, we have to hide our age. You know, just because, I remember one of my favorite lines from one of my TED Talks is that if human beings are books, then most often we judge women by their covers and men by their contents. And so when we say, as Debra said, I'm 47, as Rakhee says, proudly I'm 47, I say proudly, I'm so happy to be 60. Because it's what is that rule that someone made up that as women we are defined by how we look, and therefore the older we get, we lose our value? What is that norm? So let's shatter some of these stereotypes. With that, let me ask Holly one of the questions that I would really like to know, Holly, is how have you found passion in your work? What is it that you do to combine the professional Holly and the personal Holly and blend them so you actually leverage passion?
Well, thank you for the question, Debjani. I spent the better part of my early career, I feel like, doing what other people asked me to do, right? I'm a very organized person. I would keep my lists. I would add a lot of things on my list that people had asked me to do, bosses, peers, everything else, right? Because I really wanted to, I think, please other people, right? And I felt like I was adding value and helping and contributing to my company, to my firm by doing that. I was not very happy, right? And what I did with the guidance of some of my dear mentors and sponsors was to really step back and think about what gave me energy. And the way that one of those people put it was like, when you do your to-do list, Holly, what are the things that are always at the bottom, right? That just carry over week after week. I mean, I think a lot of us can relate to this, right? Stop doing those things, right? Like, those things are not what you should be doing, right? You are not, you know, this notion of comparative advantage, right? Like, what can I do better than someone else? It's never gonna be those things because I don't even wanna do them in the first place, right? Let alone give my best to it. And so I thought hard about, okay, I know the things that are at the bottom. What are the things that always come to the top, right? When I wake up in the morning, where am I really excited to spend my time? And where is my passion? And the answer for me was twofold, both rooted, you know, pretty deeply in my childhood and growing up. And one is around education and helping to improve opportunities for our youth. We might talk about it a bit later, but I'm the first person in my family to go to college, and I grew up in a town and an environment where going to college was not the norm. It was not expected in my family or in our community. And I know that my entire life has changed because of the fact that I was able to do that. And I recognize what an opportunity and a privilege that was, and I spend a lot of my time working with educational nonprofits, helping to advise now, you know, local government, state governments. I've worked with our federal government, right? Private investors, right? Private equity firms who are thinking about investing in education, the entire gamut. So I carve out a meaningful portion of my time at McKinsey beyond what I do day to day in retail to think about education and how I can help make a difference in that. And then in a related concept, because of my role at McKinsey, I was invited to serve on the board of KIP, DFW, which I've been doing for the better part of the past year, working with charter schools here, there are 6, to help in lower income communities like where I grew up, to help, kids have a better opportunity to go to and through college. So that's one part of it, and I spend a portion of every single day I have in one of those 2 places on education, right? It gives me energy, it helps remind me why I do what I do and why I work hard, and really appreciate the privilege and the opportunity that I have right in my life, which is very much a product of that part. And the second is just spending time with people who give me energy, right? Someone made the comment earlier that you're a reflection of, the people you spend the 5 most amount of time with, and I think that's so true, and I love, I used to be very insecure about this. Now I love being the dumbest person in any group, right? I love it. It's like, yes, I did this well today, and then I just listen. I'm like, what can I learn from everybody? But part of why I've selected my firm and why I've stayed with McKinsey is because I do think I'm blessed to work with really smart people. I mean, all of our firms are actually, we have our education degrees. They are human capital businesses, right? Talent is the actual only definer for everything we do and everything we have. And at my firm, where I'm lucky enough to be part of our partnership, right? It's the intelligence, the work ethic, and the integrity of the people that you work with that really defines that. And I spend a lot of time mentoring our women, leading our recruiting efforts for women, helping to bring who I think are the best women in the world into our firm, supporting them when they're
much in life that really you shouldn't sort of live out in the open. And I'm not saying, post everything that you ever ate on social media. Not the biggest fan of that. But I do think that there is something about my internal source of power comes from the fact that there isn't really a whole lot that I think I'm afraid of. So one of the things that I recently have been through in my life was it'll be 2 years in June, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And at the time I got my diagnosis, I was in the throes of a knockdown, drag-out fight in bankruptcy court, and our entire team was working 200 to 300 hours a month, and it was a highly inconvenient time for this to happen. But separate and apart from that, I was faced with the question of, now what do I do with this? With this piece of information? This is clearly going to have an impact on my life. And I've got to figure out what this means for my family. I've got to figure out what this means for work. And I debated how to handle that from a career perspective. Do I keep it as quiet as I can? Because, we can't let anybody know that we have something going on with us. We can't let anybody see that there's something wrong, that perhaps we're weak, we've got an illness, we've got whatever. You can't let that show. We have to have, our cape has to be flowing at all times, right? With perfectly coiffed hair at the same moment. So I really debated what to do. And Debjani, I apologize. I know you said that this was the speed round. This is not necessarily the fastest answer, but the question. So I spoke with some of my mentors and went through what the potential options were. Well, the options were keep it quiet, don't say anything, try and do this as quietly as possible, all the way to, hey, just go out there with your message and it's your life. It's part of your story. It's going to be who you are. And I picked the latter option, and I'm very glad that I did. And I did it after a lot of thoughtful reflection internally, but also with my family. And I'm glad that I did because first and foremost, out of all of it, I feel that I got to not only control my own narrative, but way more importantly than that, if my story changes the life of one person, it impacts just one person, it will have all been worth it. And that in turn rewards me. That makes me feel an awful lot better. Because there's nothing about the experience that was pleasant, but I will say I sure do appreciate hearing from other people that me telling my story has helped them. So that's been a source of internal power. It helped me grow as a person and change, and I will talk to anyone. I will probably talk your ear off about it. And if you ever need to talk about whether it's career issues, whether it's about health issues, whether it's about cancer, please look me up, and I will gladly take time out of my day, week, month, however long you need me, and I will be there for you. And I think that's how we pay it forward.
Rakhee, thank you very much. I'm humbled by the strength with which you shared your vulnerability, and I'm just humbled by that. Thank you so much for that offer. Holly, I'm going to actually ask you, you referenced a little bit being the first person in your family to attend college, and you did share a few of the details, but I'm actually going to dig deeper. I'd like to know specifically, what was it in you that made it possible for you to overcome these obstacles? What was that, the thing in you? What was it you did?
Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I mean, maybe show of hands, others who are the first in their family to go to college. It's a lot. Yeah, maybe 10% of the room. So I think round of applause for everybody who just raised their hand. And I'm sure people can probably relate to what I'm about to say. I think for me, there were two big obstacles, maybe just to start there. One was financial, obviously, and one was deeper. One was on expectations, right? I didn't know what to expect because I'd never been there and I didn't have anybody to help me. The first one was relatively easier to overcome, right? Just from the standpoint of I worked all through college, right? I had a job with the marketing department at the University of Michigan, and I worked at a golf course, and I worked 30 hours a week alongside my studies, and it meant that I wouldn't go to all the fun trips or things like that on the weekend, and that was something I was okay with, right? It was it did change in me. Debra talked a lot about kind of financial responsibility earlier. For me, I have this like neurotic sense of saving now that I don't know that I'll ever quite get out of me. And I've made a commitment to myself and to my partner, David, that, we'll never be in debt, because that was like a horrible feeling to kind of, feel that way and have to get through that. So I paid it off as fast as I could. I think the deeper part and where I start to see parts of me come out that was different was in not knowing what to expect, right? You walk into a university, there were 5 people in my graduating class from high school that went to college, right? Most went to community schools around, and I was one of 2 who went to a 4-year institution. And I didn't have anybody there that I knew, and, didn't have family to help. And I felt really alone, and I didn't know who to turn to or how to do that. So I went like almost on the extreme end and started reaching out to anyone who could like help me, which for me, I'd received a scholarship, was our Board of Regents. And I reached out to 2 of the members of our Board of Regents, not really appreciating at the time that these are incredibly senior people who probably didn't want to talk to a college freshman, right? But 2 of them did. Lo and behold, I sent 4 notes and 2 responded to me. And those people became tremendous mentors and supporters in my life. They had graduated from Michigan 20 years before me. One of them, a man named Mark Gandow, he gave me my first job, my first internship, like formal internship coming through college. And I think the biggest thing that I did that helped me kind of overcome that was to reach out, right? Like, I feel like a lot of our natural inclination, and you're hitting on this too, is to go inward, right? Or if we need something, like kind of hunker down and try to get it done on our own, or using our same kind of conventional ways or tricks that had worked for us before, versus like, I can't do this on my own, right? Or maybe I shouldn't do it on my own. Maybe I'd get to a better, easier answer if I asked for help. And there's a lot of people who are willing to help. And I've been surprised and humbled and like delighted to see that at every subsequent year, right? I ask for help on everything, everything. And I've kind of taken that life lesson through.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. That is such a life lesson, right? To forget that. I loved what you said about the coiffed hair and the cape, and then combine that with what Holly just said about just reach out, right? There's a formula. Okay, I'm going to show my geeky engineer part, but there is a formula, really a ratio of how much is internal and how much is external, how much help we need and how much we need to stand alone and say, I got this. And I just think these two ladies have just exemplified that. Wonderful. And Rina, I want to ask you, you had mentioned when we spoke about some of the resources that you were able to leverage in your organization, whether it was mentoring, whether it was women's groups or different networks. Can you share some of that wisdom with the rest of us?
Yeah, sure. I also kind of lead our Women at GT initiative here in Dallas. I've been involved with that from really the first year I joined the firm. And, I joined the firm and I had a 2.5-year daughter, and then I had another daughter in a year's time. And it was really odd because people that time in the public accounting, they were like, are you crazy? So are you going to leave, right? And there was truly no support system. And but I wanted to do it. I had kids very early, and I wanted to balance that part, and that's how I got involved with having a Women at GT program. And we really focused on recruitment, retention, and development of our women. As I think in the earlier conversation we talked about, more than 50% of the women from colleges are female, actually. But what we really see in our profession is a lot of them really kind of go away in first 4 or 5 years. And so our focus has been kind of how do we really help these women to, keep our talent pool with us so we don't lose them, and how do we help them to go professionally, and also kind of some of the other aspect, which is kind of managing their personal life if they, want to kind of have kids or family, and how do we help them support them. So I would say, for me, I was really blessed that I had some of the people, including male and female, who helped me kind of support and balance my career as I was trying to juggle those initial year. And from there, we as a firm has done a tremendous work to really, not only have a program, but really have a support system around you. So you have others like you, and you can share, the best practices, and we did a number of programs internally and externally to help our women. But that has been one of the really favorite thing, beside everything else I do on technical side and, growing business and clients. I think this is kind of something has been really near and dear to me, that something I benefited to some extent, but I really wanted to give back and kind of help younger women, as they are growing up in the profession. So.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause for the panel. And now we're going to move to the Q&A. Let me just check into how many mics we have. Do we have enough roving mics? And would we have one person who would help us with moving them around? We have one extra mic over here. And if you don't have, thank you so much. If you don't have it specific to a person, so it's Holly, Rakhee, and Rina. So if you have a question that is specific to a person, I noticed that there are mics in multiple different places. Just go ahead and raise your hand. And if it's a general question, just ask it generally. And we have one over there. I see a hand raised in the back next to the phone. I'll be right over. And then we'll get the second hand ready. Was there anyone else? There was one over there. Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
So my question is, as strong female leaders, which everyone in this room fits that category, oftentimes we're expected to be strong in ourselves. And it's sometimes very difficult to ask for help, so that resonated very strongly with me. And my question is, how do you become better at letting people know that you need help? Because oftentimes they expect you don't.
Is there any one of you that would like to field that question?
Sure.
Rakhee?
I think it starts with baby steps. I think you have to start with what seems like the simplest, easiest things and ask for help there. And it's like a stone or a tiny little snowball that just grows and grows and grows. You'll get more and more comfortable with it over time. It's like taking risks again. I know I keep coming back to this theme, but, you take little risks, and then you take a little bit bigger of a risk, and you take a bigger risk, and then eventually you can kind of face it all, right? I think it's just start with the simplest things. Asking a neighbor for help who you might not have normally reached out to. I know, we recently moved to a new neighborhood, and we are just now getting to know brand new neighbors after having lived in the same house for 12 years. It's a different dynamic, but hey, it forces you out of your comfort zone. I think it's just something you have to make yourself more comfortable doing, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get.
I agree with that, and maybe just to build a bit, I think there is a redefinition that we need to put around confidence and competence in the workplace. Meaning, there's one way I could, if you're my boss, right, and I have a job to do for you, there's one outcome where I individually put my head down and give you my best answer, right? There's another outcome, which is I will take a first start at that. I will reach out to 15 other people who might have seen something similar, right? And I will come back to you with a better answer, right? And I will be the one who did that, right? But I think the latter is a more effective way to be, right? But it redefines, what you look like in terms of a competent professional. It's not that I have to hunker down and do it by myself, right? I can still be the person convening the answer. I can still be the person bringing all the insights and providing the foundation on which to build them, but I don't have to deliver it by myself. And I would say that we do ourselves a disservice when we actually take that, I have to be 100% independent mindset to everything.
Excellent responses from both of you. Thank you. Now we had a question back there. And is it specific to someone?
No, it's a general question.
Rina, I'm going to ask. You.
So it's wonderful hearing all the inspiring stories. Being a born entrepreneur myself, it's always very inspiring to learn more. So did you ever have any moments of self-doubt when you thought, is this the right place for me, or is this the right time for me to do this? And how did you overcome those self-doubts?
I would say over my career there has been a lot of time that I doubted myself that is this the path I really want? Is this a balance I want for me personally, with my family? And because there were a lot of things that I would say it's not ever easy, and I had to compromise and sacrifice a lot of those things. It is where I would say personally what I did, because I have given up a lot of time at work many times that I missed different things with my kids or their sports, or wasn't always available to a lot of those things, or have made some decision even within my career to change my industry or change the path I was heading into. Things that has worked for me always is to have I would use mentor a lot in my career. In my personal life, I would say my husband, in a way, is sort of a mentor for me. And we always kind of sat down and decided what was the best for us and what was the most priority at that time. There were years in our both career that I took a back seat and actually did slow down a little bit when he was really, really busy. And there were other times that now he has taken a little bit back seat and helped me kind of grow where I want to be. And same for the professional life. I would say I've used multiple mentors in my career, and it's always kind of having that circle of trust for you to kind of visit. Are these the option, and am I heading in the right direction? And leveraging that others. I mean, you still have to make your own decision what's right for you, but really kind of reach out and leverage kind of the others who have done it before you. So.
Thank you. And I'm going to add just a little bit that I learned, which is relative to that. One of my very good friends, Linda, she reminded me, when my career was sort of taking off and Barnes & Noble was getting the book and I was getting prizes and awards and lots of good stuff, I kept saying how lucky I am. I just kept saying, I'm so lucky, I'm so lucky. And this friend of mine, and I have a friend, Chandra, inside here, who actually knows this friend, she said, Debjani, I'd like you to try one trick. You are very hard on yourself, and this applies whether it's for acknowledging good things or whether when you have self-doubt. She said, instead of using your name, use your name of your friend. So in this case, it was Linda. So if you can say, Linda did X, Linda did that, Linda did this, and then stop for a minute, is Linda very lucky? And it completely changed the way I looked at it, because I could see that Linda had done, like, worked really hard and done this, this, and this. And so when you have self-doubts, take your name out of it and put your best friend's name and say, so-and-so, can so-and-so do this? I think you'll find a very different answer. So that's just another response. We have time for one more question.
Debjani, right here.
Oh, right here.
Hi. So this question is for Rakhee. First of all, I admire your strength and thank you for sharing such a personal story with all of us. So obviously you are a super mom and a super professional, and I'm pretty sure you get overwhelmed on certain days. So where do you find your strength and how do you find your strength?
Netflix. So, kidding aside, I actually do watch a lot of Netflix, but, you know, I find a lot of strength in my mom. So I lost my mom about 6 years ago, and who I call my mom is a whole other story. She's actually my grandmother, but she raised me. And she was a woman who never had anything more than a third grade education. She left India in the 50s to move to England, to a country where she didn't speak the language. She didn't have the educational background to technically succeed, and she figured it out. She went and got a job. She went and she raised my father and my uncle, and it was a time where both my grandfather and grandmother both had to work, and she still, got dinner on the table and did everything else. I draw a lot of inspiration, I think, from her, because I look at her bravery and her courage and her hard work and her perseverance. And I think to myself, gosh, if, in her 20s, she could pick up and move to a country where she didn't speak the language and make it all work and figure it all out with what little she had, there isn't a whole heck of a lot that I can't do. So I think I draw a lot of inspiration from her, primarily. The rest is really from the people who I'm surrounded by, this room full of women. The fact that you all showed up today, that you are committed enough to yourselves and to other women to be here, this is inspirational. Like, looking out at all of your faces is just absolutely amazing to me. And these are like the little snapshots that I put away. I'll tell you a little story about this ring that I'm wearing. So this past August, I went into Kendra Scott. This is not an ad for Kendra Scott, but I went into Kendra Scott, and I was going to buy myself a gift, and it was the 1-year anniversary from my double mastectomy. And I was going to buy myself a little gift to remind myself, to mark the day. It had been a year. And so I walked into the room, I walked into Kendra Scott, and I was looking around, and I was actually buying a birthday gift for a friend as well, because I'm typically multitasking as well. So I was buying this birthday gift, and then I start looking for myself, and I tell the woman, oh, I'm looking for something special because of this. So I can't quite decide what I want to buy, so I finally said to myself, forget it, I'm just going to buy it all for myself. So I decide I'm going to buy a necklace, a ring, and a bracelet. And so I go check out, and as I get to the checkout, there's my necklace that I'm buying for my friend, and there's the necklace that I have bought for myself, but my other 2 items aren't there. And as I point this out to the cashier, she said, Carol wanted to do a little something special for you. So she hands me this other bag. And inside the bag is this lovely note that said, you were so inspirational today. I wanted to just do something to let you know that. And I of course, cry right there in the middle of Kendra Scott. But, I wear this ring now, and I wear it as often as I can to remind me that my story impacts others, just as other people's stories impact me. So I love hearing other people's stories. I love hearing about your journeys. I love hearing about Holly's journey and Rina's journey. We all have our own stories, and we all should be drawing inspiration from each other. So that's it.
Thank you. You are inspirational. I mean, literally, this is just, I'm learning so much. Thank you very much. There is a question from the students' table over there, And I wonder if we can get that. This is the last official question in the larger room, but you know during the power hour, you will get a chance to ask any of these ladies and the others your own questions. So don't think your questions unasked. What question do we have?
I hope you can excuse my voice, but yeah, I'm truly inspired by Miss Rakhee Patel. So I would like to forward my question to her. So coming apart from career and what you've achieved, was there any point in time that you did something and you said, finally, okay, at this point in time, there is absolute gender equality? I see no inequality after I've achieved this in my point of career.
Are you asking that of her personally?
Yeah.
A personal moment? And if you want us to open it up, we can do it as well.
I'll address it first, but I think it's a fair question really for all three of us, because we all have somewhat similar but probably different perspectives within our respective organizations. The frank answer is no. I don't think that we've achieved gender equality. I don't think we've achieved racial equality. I don't think we've sexual orientation. I think that there's still a lot. There's a long way to go on all of it. I think we all have our roles to play, and for me, I don't think we're there, and I think it is absolutely my obligation, my responsibility, my role for where I am in my organization to keep pressing forward, to make things more equal, to give more opportunities. I agree with Rina on the point of it is absolutely up to us to go out there, ask for it, make it happen, ensure how we do it. I think it was Debra that said, if you get the opportunity, please don't drop the ball. That might be one step forward for you, but it's 3 steps back for the rest of all of us. So I think it is incumbent upon us, but I wish I lived in a world where that was the case, but I can't say that is.
And what I'm going to do is I will actually, because I've sort of got some signals, we have to kind of move time-wise, hold on to that, so if anybody else has that question of you, we will get some more responses, because I want to officially allow us to transition to the power hour. I'd also ask you to Google, in terms of gender equality, the actual numbers, because this is not a notion of gender equality. I mean, if you're an Asian woman, like many of us are, you generally will get 92 cents on the dollar. Same thing allowing, and you'd have to be a rabbit having 10 children to say that having kids is the reason. And but if you're a Hispanic woman, honestly, if you're a Hispanic woman, you would get 56 cents on the dollar. And if you were an African American woman, you would be getting 64 cents on the dollar. So look, we have come some ways. There is a huge, huge gap. So
hey, Debjani, you just made us all Playboy bunnies.
So with that, what I'd like to do is, I don't want us to just give a round of applause to the panel. What I'd love for us is to give applause to each person, because they were remarkable. Do you agree with me? They were remarkable. So, Rakhee Patel. Holly Briedis, please. Rina Parikh. Wonderful, wonderful panel.
And Debjani Biswas.
Oops, thank you.